Hello, reporter room investigators. Come on in, come on in. Oh my gosh. I think I know the real reason that David went to Santa Barbara, and it is not what we originally thought. So please grab yourself something to drink, grab a snack, come and cozy up to me. Come on in, come on in. We have a lot to talk about. In the David and Celeste Rivas Hernandez case. This video is for adults only. Viewer discretion is advised. Everything I'm sharing is my opinion, and David is innocent until proven guilty. Come on in and tell me where you are from. You can tell me what city, what state, what country, whatever you feel comfortable sharing. And I do think this is going to be interesting. So buckle up, guys. We have a very detailed show. So I am going to put a trigger warning on today's episode. While we're giving people a second to come in, let me just give you some breaking news in the case too. The Los Angeles medical examiner completed the examination of Celeste Rivas Hernandez, but still has not determined her COD. So what could be happening here? Well, we're going to talk about the Santa Barbara trip. That's mostly what the show is about, but I just want to give you this breaking news. But her COD has not been determined. Now, they could be consulting with someone else or having somebody else have a second look at the, at her examination. Now, it says, quote, the deputy medical examiner is requesting additional testing and or studies in order to make a determination. This is according to the ME. And this may be because she was not just in the trunk for weeks, you guys. She could have, I mean, we know the last known sighting of her was January 2nd of 2025 that we know about. So D4VD has reportedly stopped cooperating with detectives since the investigation. He never cooperated. The only ones who ever said that D4VD, David Anthony Burke, was cooperating was David Anthony Burke through his PR machine, which I have told you guys, please give this a thumbs up. It's hard to overcome this. The police believe that whoever put Celeste in the front trunk of David's Tesla may have had help, including when it came to hiding the remains and taking her apart. The mansion owner is re-renting the mansion for $20,000 a month, according to real estate agent Alex McSick. I hope I'm saying that correctly, Alex. Outside of the mansion got a facelift with a fresh coat of green trim, and the property photos will be updated as other renovations are done. The homeowner, Malden Trefanovic, who hired SF Investigates, also hired a trash crew. This is so gross. Like he left this place trashed. It had to haul away heaps of clothes and boxes left behind at the home when David moved out. So someone stopped by the property to collect David's belongings, and they filmed it, right? These two masked men, but they left behind a mess, it sounds like, for the homeowner. So David is innocent until proven guilty. Come on in, tell me where you're from. So why did David take this trip in the middle of the night from LA to Santa Barbara County? Well, I have a theory on this, and it is very dark. So I am putting a trigger warning on this. So this video is for adults only. I don't think that David was planning to dispose of her in Santa Barbara and backed out, which is kind of what we were originally thinking, right? When we were talking about this the other day, I think he went back to get her. So why would he do this? So you will recall that we heard that David actually used Celeste. Let me show. In these shirts that he had on sale. Now, people said, oh no, if he had used it, his Itami red painted, bloody looking shirts that he was selling online to probably mostly kids, right? I don't think an adult would buy this and wear it. Maybe a young adult. But you will recall that he bragged online about being into gore, right? And that he was very specific about it. He's very specific about it. Let me just show you the receipts on that. There it is, right there. There's David. You can see D4VD, and that's what he wrote. I love gore. Okay. And this is significant. So, and along with some of these other disturbing posts that he made about, chopping meat, and when if he sees her while he's talking with other dudes, but it's not what we were originally thinking. Nothing is like what we were originally thinking. So let's talk about what's really going on here. So we know that symbolism is everything for David, right? We know he took this trip, and the LAPD are trying to figure out why he drove 2.5 hours to Santa Barbara County, 2.5 hours or so when he was down there, and another 2.5 hours back. So did he go to Santa Barbara to recover Celeste? And if so, why? And this is why I believe we know that everything for David is about symbolism, right? He was wearing the celestial divine Hello Kitty shirt, which I believe is very symbolic of Celeste, more specifically about her being divine, celestial, so heavenly, right? Very symbolic. And then he was wearing, his video shows him, dragging this body along the ground, and it shows people dragging this body along the ground and putting this body into the back of into a trunk of a car. And then he's running around the country holding mock funerals. So I think we can all agree that everything about David is very, very symbolic. And he even had an unreleased song titled Celeste. Again, very symbolic. And even the crow music that he posted on Celeste's birthday, September 7th of 2025, wearing a Hello Kitty shirt, is very symbolic because crows represent death and rebirth in many cultures. So everything about David was about symbolism. And I think David viewed himself as really artistic. I don't think he is. I think he's just dark and awful, in my opinion. But so having physical possession of Celeste would have also been symbolic for David, in my opinion. Hear me out. And it's not understood for regular people like us. We would not think about it this way, but we're not David. Okay. So we have heard rumors that the LAPD were investigating rumors that David had used Celeste to create these Itami painted shirts. You can see him whenever he has a blindfold on and he's wearing a painted shirt. That's supposed to be him as a Tommy. And these are the shirts that he was selling for $35 a pop. So we have heard rumors that he was investigating, that LAPD was investigating the claims. Now, I don't know if the claims are true or not, but it was enough that LAPD was reportedly investigating the claims that he was using Celeste, not for all of it, but for parts. And I've already shown you guys in another couple of live streams screenshots of him making the shirts on black tarps, right? And she was found in black plastic. So why would LAPD waste their time investigating these claims? Is it just trying to rule things that are out, or is there something more nefarious there? We know they're trying to put the pieces together of the Santa Barbara trip. So David did go back and retrieve Celeste, and I believe it so he could literally use her in these shirts. Now, hear me out before you dismiss the theory. People said that, that it would turn the shirts brown. Not if you just used a little tiny bit, just enough to create, in his mind, something that would be symbolic for David, right? And if you haven't subscribed to Reporter Room, please consider subscribing. It's free. It lets the YouTube algorithm know I'm doing a good job. Thumbs up. And if you're watching at home, hop onto your cell phone and come on up and talk to me, as we're gonna do it interactive. But I just want to lay this all out for you. So people said that if he had used a little bit of Celeste's, into the shirts, it would turn them brown, but not if he just mixed in a tiny bit with a lot of red paint, just enough to create in his mind something that would be symbolic for David, in my opinion, allegedly. Now, I think she was his muse, and I think there was some part of him, and it's not something that we can understand, that wanted to possess Celeste. So I think that she was ultimately found in the front trunk of his Tesla, and instead of disappearing into a remote area of Santa Barbara County, and this is why. So I think that this was all about control and domination for David. I think that, and I believe that Celeste loved him. I don't think David felt love for her. I think he liked the idea of her. He also liked gore, right? He said he loved gore. He even bragged about trying to desensitize himself to gore. And if you look up gore and then you look up video with that word, the G word. Please don't write it in the chat, and I'll let you look that up. I can't talk about it on YouTube. You will see how dark it is. And so David is not the first person to use someone in this disturbing way, and we're going to talk about that. So put a pin in that in just a second. So please stay with me. But David was dark, and I think he actually wanted to have and maintain control of Celeste. He liked to dominate her, and I do believe that this crime is about domination and possession. I don't think that David loved her, and I've shared with you before, I believe that David hated women, and this is why he was interested in this little girl. And the reason I don't believe that he loved her is that we didn't hear one single word from this man who was traveling around the country with an adolescent-sized casket holding mock funerals. We didn't hear one word of condolences from this man for Celeste, for her family, even after he had heard that a body had been found in the front trunk of his Tesla, and it had a shush tattoo on the finger, which he had a matching tattoo. And I believe this was a pact between David and Celeste. Shush, literally. He knew it was Celeste, but he stayed silent. He just kept touring, not one word. And sometimes what somebody doesn't say is just as interesting as what they do say, right? Sometimes what somebody doesn't say, this is a Tommy right here, is just as interesting as what they do say. So whenever you see him wearing the blindfold, that's a Tommy. So why would somebody try to desensitize themselves to gore? In light of what we know about David now, and I do think it's worth considering that the reason that Celeste was found in the front trunk of his Tesla is because he did have a deep desire to maintain control of her. And I believe that he enticed Celeste away from her family, just to be clear, in my opinion, on multiple occasions with nefarious intentions. And those are felonies that go up to 8 years for each felony. When she was 12, he was 18. 6 years difference. So people have said, oh, they weren't that far apart. They were. If it would be 16 and 18, okay. But 12 and 18, no. 19, she was 13. When he was 20, she was only 14 years old. So there is a 6-year difference between David and Celeste. And so his bizarre obsession with Celeste is evidenced by the lyrics in his song Romantic Homicide, which are frequently cited, but are even more disturbing in light of the recent events of the police trying to figure out why David went to Santa Barbara County. So the lyrics are disturbing. It says, quote, in the back of my mind, I illed you with a K. I didn't even regret it. I can't believe I said it, but it's true. I hate you. I do believe that he was fantasizing about doing this before he did it. I believe David when he says that he hated her. I think the more that Celeste started to look like a young woman and not like a 12-year-old and 13-year-old anymore, she started to mature. I believe that David would have come to despise her. Additionally, in my opinion, allegedly, a separate unreleased leaked song titled Celeste was also highlighted for having creepy lyrics that fans in the media connect to the case. Specific lines on that song include, oh, Celeste, the girl with my name tattooed on her chest, smell her on my clothes like cigarettes. I hear her voice each time I take a breath. I'm obsessed. I believe him when he tells us he was obsessed. So I believe that he was obsessed and that he wanted to control her and he wanted to dominate her, but it just gets darker and worse. So listen to this. He says, quote, run away from home in the name of love, C. So in my opinion, C is Celeste. He's directly speaking to her, run into my loving arms. And of course, we know she did run away from home and toward David multiple times. Her family reported her missing multiple times. And instead of condolences, we had this bizarre SWAT call to David's parents' house that, a lot of you guys were suspicious of the SWAT call. A lot of you guys thought it might be David. I don't know if it was or isn't, but I believe it is possible that it could have been him that made this call. And it would have given him an excuse, a legal excuse to transfer his property into his parents' name in an effort to protect his assets from Celeste's family. And it also would give David an excuse to tell his parents that he needed to transfer the property over to their name because he needed to protect himself. Remember, he has to save face with his parents too, right? He needed to protect himself from the public finding out where he lived. So this would have served two purposes. It would protect his assets from Celeste's family, but it would also allow him to save face with his own family. And that's exactly what he did. Instead of stopping his tour around the country with an adult adolescent size casket holding mock funerals, he repeatedly went on tour. He stayed on tour and just continued around the country with Celeste in tow. Or so, I'm sorry, with the symbolism of Celeste in tow. Um, so knowing, and he continued to post symbolic things like the crow song, which he was wearing the Hello Kitty shirt on, which Celeste was reported missing in Hello Kitty shoes. He I believe referred to her as his Hello Kitty girl. And I think that this would have been Celeste's 15th birthday. He knew full well she was in the trunk of the car, but it just talks about how important, this just proves, in my opinion, how important the symbolism is to David. So listen to this part of his lyrics too, and then we're going to talk about possession, because what David allegedly maybe went back to Santa Barbara for is not new. It's been done before you think, oh, she's really lost it this time. No, I haven't. I don't think. This is just my opinion. David's innocent until proven guilty. So, but listen to this. No quote, nobody ever caught me. I spoke too soon in the back of a police car. I ain't telling nothing. Do the same if they ask you about her. So I think he was already fantasizing about what he was going to do. He was thinking about what he was going to do if he was, put in the back of a police car. And we keep thinking that this has to be some kind of crime of passion. But I don't think it was, you guys. I don't think this was just about him worried that she was going to tell on him. This might be part of it. But I think the fact that he went back to Santa Barbara, in my opinion, to get her is way, way darker. So let's talk about that. So I think the fact that David chose to keep Celeste near him physically, somewhere where he had active possession of her, which again is an act of domination and control over Celeste, even when she was no longer here, right? So he's talking about this song that nobody ever caught him. He's not telling anything. And isn't this what he did? He didn't say anything. And he, Neo scrubbed his social media account around the same time as David did. And reportedly, some of the other friends did too in his entourage. So she was found in the front trunk of his Tesla. And in my opinion, he knew she was there the whole time. And I'm not sure that he was hoping that the car was going to be impounded. So let's talk about this type of possession, because it's not new. Okay, Jeffrey Dahmer's had a desire to do what he did with his victims. I'm not going to say it on the air, but it was rooted in a complex personality profile characterized by extreme loneliness. We know David was homeschooled from the age of 13 on. We don't know why. He had Jeffrey Dahmer had a deep-seated fear of abandonment and various other diagnosed personality disorders. So let's consider other people who have also done away with people and kept them. Fred and Rose West. This creepy couple subjected their victims to, unspeakable things and then kept them after they were gone. Kept them as trophies, in my opinion. Specific? They were very specific. So often, they literally kept bones, suggesting that they were retained as keepsakes or trophies by a couple. So this is a married couple, Fred and Rose West, that did this together. Ed Kemper, if you guys have watched the Mindhunter FBI series on how the FBI kind of got into studying SKs, he was known as the co-ed Iller with a K, and he, took off the top part of his victims and kept them and engaged, according to him, in SA. Number 3, Ed, I think it's Gein. He was notorious. He was a grave robber. This is who the Norman Bates and Psycho character was loosely based on. And he dug up people and used them for household objects, made them into things that he kept around the house for trophies. So this practice is also often a key indicator of a SK's need to maintain control and ownership over their victims, even after they've been done away with. So what would be the psychological reasons behind David doing something like this to Celeste? Well, number 1, of course, is power and control. Taking somebody apart can be a way for an individual to maintain a sense of dominance over the victim. Because why in the world would he be moving that Tesla around to various locations? But he has to keep it away from his house, right? He has to keep it away from his mansion because he has other people staying at the mansion with him. He has an entourage there. So he's just moving this Tesla around, or having somebody move this Tesla around. Remember, police believe that it may have been an accomplice. And I think that this would have been extending his control and his dominance over Celeste, and continuing to have that by maintaining control of her. The other motivation would be that he would have the opportunity to relive and fantasize about the event, right? The trophies serve as a reminder that allows individuals that commit crimes like this to revisit the feelings and the emotions that they are experiencing during the crime. This can be a way of reliving the intensity of some type of an act like this. So in my opinion, David's motivation was not simply doing away with someone. We know he, talked about this, but rather an attempt to permanently possess his victim and have her become a physical part of him through his art. Through his art. Again, he's innocent until proven guilty. So this is why I believe that he kept her in the Tesla, moving it around from place to place. And ultimately, before he went on tour, the last time he moved it before it was impounded was he moved it around the corner from his rented mansion, so close to him, right? But not close enough where the entourage could see it, on Bluebird Avenue. So as a 20-year-old, I don't think David would have been that familiar with how wealthy people behave. And it may not have occurred to him that wealthy people living in mansions don't want a dirty looking Tesla outside their house, and that they would call the police about this car. We do know that this Tesla was moved successfully, and I believe Celeste was in there multiple times prior to Celeste being discovered. But when he moved it around the corner from his house into his own neighborhood, closer to him, or whoever moved it for him, I think that this would have been him, not realizing that the neighbors were going to call the police. So I just think we need to consider that there is a darker possibility of why he went to Santa Barbara County, and it wasn't to look for a place to get rid of her and then change his mind. I think it was to go back and to get her. So I think it was possible that he was not willing to let go of having possession of Celeste. Remember, even on her, what would have been her 15th birthday, he's still posting the song about owls, wearing a Hello Kitty shirt. And the owls are very significant for birth and rebirth. So he was thinking about her even after she was in the trunk of his Tesla. Now, Jeffrey Dahmer explained in interviews that his acts of, what he did with his victims stemmed from a combination of curiosity and deep loneliness. And he said that by consuming, he felt like they could be a permanent part of him, and that they could never leave him or abandon him. So this behavior was an extension of him. And isn't this how David viewed Celeste, but in a different way? Not in a Jeffrey Dahmer way, but isn't it possible that David viewed Celeste not as her own independent person, but simply as an extension of himself, a part of his art, and that he did possess her, but not physically, but through his music and through his art. So performance art and video resurfaced showing David performing on stage with this adolescent-sized prop casket. Let me just see if I have a picture of that. There it is. It wasn't a full adult size. And I think this, again, everything to David has significance, you guys. Please give this a thumbs up, and please help me out with the algorithm. I'm going to need your help to get this video out. And I do want to get word out about what I think happened here. So photos and videos resurfaced of David performing with this prop casket. The music video depicts a version of him carrying this body, dragging the two people dragging her, putting her in the trunk while he looks on, but he's blindfolded as a Tommy, which we can now see in a much darker light, right? But this was all symbolic to David. For him, he saw himself as very artistic, and this was all very symbolic to him. And so that last lyric where he talks about he's not telling nothing, and he says to do the same if they ask you, I think this is David telling his friends and his listeners not to say anything. And how many people did see David with Celeste, right? Some people said that they thought she was older. Okay, but I don't think she looked that much older. She did appear to maybe have some IDs that got her into an 18 and up club. But PI Steve Fisher has alluded to the fact that he could not tell whether Celeste was impaired or not in some of the videos that were seen of her. But was somebody providing her with substances or alcohol? We know that he, at the very least, he was allegedly harboring a missing child, and I believe ultimately prevented her from returning to her family. I believe that Celeste was very strong-willed, and I think that this strong will and this feistiness initially attracted him. But ultimately, as she began to appear and to look mature and appear more like a woman, I think this ultimately repelled him because she would stand up to him. So I think when she was younger, she was probably a lot easier to control. But when she turned 13 and then 14, she just didn't look like a little girl anymore. And I think that he was not only not attracted to her anymore, but he was starting to hate her. But I think the idea that Celeste would want to return to her family would have been devastating for David. His career was taking off. He did have a lot to lose, but also he had been fantasizing, in my opinion, for a long time about doing what he did to her, allegedly, in my opinion. So before you dismiss this theory that David was using his art, consider other artists who have done the very similar things. They've used human beings, in my opinion, in unethical, as part of their performance art or conceptual art. And number one is Gunther von Hagens. He's a German autonomist. He developed a technique of plastinization to preserve people for his controversial Body Worlds exhibition, which displayed, real people for the purpose of education. Number two, Mark Quinn created his own self-portrait sculpture titled Self back in 1991 using approximately 10 pints of his own frozen blood. Number three, a group of Chinese artists in the 1990s, sometimes called the Cadaver Group, used actual people from morgues with the consent of the morgue's workers, but not the families, in installation to explore themes of commercialism. And they looked at the human body as an object and cultural identity. Andres Serrano is a photographer known for using bodily fluids and occasionally photographing people who are no longer with us in his provocative work. And lastly, Wayne Gilbert is an artist who incorporates the ashes of cremated individuals into his painting, stating that he treats the remains with respect. So you get the idea. Now, I'm not saying that any of the five people I've mentioned are doing away with anybody to do this. I'm just saying that this is not unheard of in the art world. And so we've been assuming this whole time that Celeste may have wanted to return home, and maybe she did. And that David would have been afraid because, she could have exposed him and ruined his career, and maybe he was. But it doesn't explain why she was found in the front truck of his Tesla that was parked around the corner from his mansion where he was renting. So I think that more than one thing can be true at the same time. I think two things can be true at once. I think it's true that he would have been afraid for her to return back to her family for fear she would expose him. But I also think that it's fair to say that the act of him keeping her in the front trunk of the Tesla for a long time was him keeping her close to her. So I think in addition, and I am going to check in with chat, if you think that this theory is possible, put a 1 in the chat. If you think this theory is not possible, put a 2 in the chat, and let's see where you guys are. Let's do a poll. So in addition to the fear of being exposed, I also think that there was this drive, this dark part of David that was into gore, that hated women, and that he had been fantasizing about doing awful things to Celeste for a long time, evidenced by the lyrics in his songs, evidenced by his visual choices in his music videos. And this evidence in his music choices and these and even the t-shirts that he thought were so cool, I think they're just sick and disturbed. And him traveling around the country holding a mock funeral with an adolescent-sized casket in light of and dragging a body in his music video and putting it in the trunk of the car in light of what he's, you know, suspected of doing, allegedly, in my opinion. This is really disturbing stuff. It's really, really disturbing stuff. So Celeste was found in the front trunk, and I just think that it's worth considering that David does not think about things the way that you think about things and the way that I think about things. I think that just like in the Brian Kohlberger case, I think that initially he would have been attracted to Maddie and Kaylee and Xana and the other girls in the house, Dylan and Bethany. But ultimately, because I think he was in the woods luring Murphy, the dog, away. But ultimately, it turned dark. He couldn't bear the idea. He didn't really want to have a relationship with these women. But he couldn't bear the idea that these young women would go on and be happy and live a great life. And so, and I think Ethan was done away with because he had a relationship with Xana. And I think this would have been really jealous for Brian Kohlberger. So ultimately, he couldn't just allow them to be happy and to go on with their life. And so Celeste was never going to be allowed to go home and just live a happy life separate from David. I think that he did want to possess her, and this is what he did. And I think this is absolutely, in my opinion, why he left to in the middle of the night to drive to Santa Barbara County and come back. I think that if he had not done that and not put her in the front trunk of the Tesla and did whatever he did to her with whoever helped him to do it, in my opinion, allegedly, I think that he probably wouldn't have gotten caught. He could have said she wasn't with me. He would have had plausible deniability. So he took a huge risk by bringing her back and putting that car on Bluebird Avenue. I don't think necessarily he thought the car was going to be impounded, because I don't think he thinks like you and I do. I think that the ultimate goal was to keep her close by, but not so close that somebody from his entourage could get into the Tesla when he wasn't there. So maybe David drove to Santa Barbara to get Celeste so that he could continue to use her in a manner that most normal people, most healthy people would never consider, so that he could continue to use Celeste for his art. Because wasn't he doing that the whole time? Hasn't David been using Celeste for his art this entire time? What do you guys think? Are you watching closely? Let's see what you guys say about the I want to see what you guys think about the poll. Let's check in with chat. Let's see. I'm looking for 1s and 2s. So a 1 if you think this is possible, a 2 if you just think it's absolutely not possible. Let me grab a sip of water. Here we go. 1. Tanya said there's no out. Kathy said it looks like Ed Gaines' art. I don't think. Yeah, exactly. But he used it. And it wasn't for art. He was using them for furniture, like a sofa. 1. Oh, yeah, lots of 1s. So you guys at least do think this is possible. Tanya put a 1. Jason said, I haven't heard many of the songs, don't want to, but I think of the lyrics song Ghost. Oh, okay. I'll have to look at that one. Anything is possible, in my opinion. Tanya put a 1. Have they got him? Not yet. Mystery Diva said, I think they're trying to figure out this trip to Santa Barbara. And that's what I was trying to figure out too. I sat there all day yesterday just going through all of the different scenarios, because if he had left her there, in my opinion, if that's the reason he went to go back and get her, he would have been clear, right? He would have had plausible deniability. Yeah, she ran away, but then she ran away from me. I don't know where she went. And it would have been very, very difficult. And maybe she would have never been found. She just would have been missing forever. Thank you for modding today, Enjaz and Red Cloud. Thank you for modding today, Cabling. Cabling says, the only thing I think of with this drive for a few hours is why you were in the desolate place. Why put her back in the car? Well, that's why I wanted to explain it. I don't think he thinks the way that we do, Cabling. I think that I think, and Mystery thinks it was for her dating Gus. T says, there are brands that throw raw meat at their fans. Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. Bailey said Gus was out of the picture before David. And Josh thinks it was control. Supaloop said, yep. Dee Dee thinks he's mentally ill. Brittany said he couldn't just leave her there. Kathy said, look at Ed Gein's art. Wow. Yeah. That's why I wanted to bring up like all of the different examples. And some artists who never did harm to anybody. I just want to make the artists I actually talked about didn't cause harm to anybody in this way. But, David loved gore. David loved gore, right? Isn't that what he told us? Isn't that what he said? He bragged about desensitizing himself. Lady said, I feel like I don't know. I don't know if he is or isn't. Brittany says, oop, I lost it. Brittany said, like psychologically, he's obsessed with wanting to keep her. Exactly. Michael, thank you for modding today. He thinks he's a coward. This is our head mod. Michael, our other head mod, is Njaz. Dee Dee said he wanted to possess this girl. Right. He was using her the whole time, right? Soup said he was sheltered and doesn't think like normal people. No, I think that thinking, we're trying to think along the lines of like what's normal, like what would be rational for us, right? How would we think about this? But what I realized is, and this is David saying that he loves gore, and he says this. Let me just show you. Let me just show you how much David loved gore. Let me show you the receipts. And those are the Hello Kitty shoes, Hello Kitty sandals. He refers to a Hello Kitty girl, and he's wearing the Celestial Divine Hello Kitty shirt. And then he posts the owl music with a Hello Kitty shirt on it on her birthday, what would have been her 15th birthday. Again, he was still using her for his art. But look at the gore comment, you guys. There's multiple comments here. Multiple comments. That's his manager who rented the mansion for him. Okay, so he says, let me move myself out of the way. I'm still in the way. He says, I got to the point where I don't even cringe when I see it no more. This is David, D4VD. Anytime you see the crown, and this was posted February 19th of 2023. So why did he, so this is him talking about the gore. And then he says here again, I used to be addicted to watching gore. And then this other word. And here he is again, February 19th, 2023. I love gore. Okay, so that's just a little bit of proof that he does not think the way that we think about stuff, right? He's not thinking like we are. And this is, again, really disturbing stuff in light of what we know now. Me, if I see her talking with other dudes and he's chopping up raw meat. And isn't that what happened to Celeste? So he's been fantasizing about this. He's been thinking about this for a long time. And this is, Ponzello trying to sound the alarm. Did you guys know D4VD likes kids? I just thought it would be worth going back and revisiting some of this. And then this is in October 23rd of 2022. So how old was Celeste at that point? She would have turned 15, right? So we got to go back, and that was if she was still alive. So her birthday's in September, so she would have been 12 in 2022. Yeah, 12 years old. And there she is. She's in there. So he was thinking about this for a long time. I think he was probably putting out feelers with other young women, but this is the girl that was willing to come. She was willing to run to him. And this is somebody asking, who's that girl? And he's like, delete everything. So I do think, yeah, PDF. Thank you for modding today, Michael and Dee Dee. He wanted to possess this girl. That's my theory. And again, this is just a theory. But that's just my opinion. I want to say, I'm going to continue to take comments, but I just do want to make sure I say thank you so much to Michael. Thank you, Michael, for the $1.99 super sticker. That is so kind of you. I'm putting that toward the computer, which I am streaming on right now. So I had a very interesting time with my computers. I replaced the computer, and then I streamed on it one time, and it just completely crashed. Luckily, I was still within my return window. I was able to return it and got another computer sent out to me. So this is they replaced it for me. So that's nice. So I'm on that now. So anyway, thank you, Njaz, for the gifted channel membership. This is our other head mod, Njaz. Thank you so much, Njaz. And then Njaz gifted, oh my goodness, 5 reporter room memberships, you guys. This is so nice of you. Thank you so much. And Diane, thank you so much for the $9.99 super thanks. I will be putting that toward the new computer. Thank you so much, Diane. I'm sorry, Dana. Dana Gianaros. I hope I said your name right. Dana Gianaros. Thank you so much. I apologize for goofing up the name there. Dana Gianaros. It's another $4.99 super sticker. Thank you so much, Dana. This is so kind of you. And thank you to Texas Life Julie for the $5 super sticker. Thank you so much. I am very grateful. I'll be putting all of this toward the computer I'm streaming on right now. So thank you very much. All right, let's take some comments, you guys. Another one. Cloudy Clamoras says, what about Albramo Witz? I'll have to look that one up. The S registry is a real life record. Yeah, it is, I'm sure. Ramonal says 1. And just says no excuse for what Ed kind did. Yeah. He was undiagnosed schizophrenic. Yeah. So I'm not saying, I'm just saying, yeah. So what I'm just trying to say, this is our other head mod, Njaz, who is just awesome, you guys. And Michael, he's going to disappear into prison. 1. Thank you for modding today, Red Cloud. 1. The audio was messed up. I don't know what that means. I hope it's... Bailey says, see if he got a huge princess cut diamond necklace at Christmas that replaced his chunky silver. Sellable asset. 1. Hey, Maddie. 1. Brittany says, I wonder if who the people are in those older comments outing. Yeah, they were people they were people that, were there trying to sound the alarm. And unfortunately, nobody was listening. Dee Dee put a 1 in the chat. Michael's asking the mods, please don't time people out, and Njaz, and he will do it. These are our 2 head mods, Njaz and Michael. What was the question? The question was, do you think this is a plausible theory? Put a 1 in the chat. If you don't think it's a plausible theory, put a 2 in the chat. Cassier said, did I miss the news? I'm distracted. You can back up the chat. If you ever come in late or you miss something, you can always just back up the chat. I don't know if you knew that. You could back it up and start it from where you want to start it from. Sometimes I'll do that, and then I'll put it on like 1.25 to replay it for myself and just, bang through it. Can you guys hear me okay? I feel like you guys can. Thank you for modding today, Njaz and Dee Dee. Delonic says his new album is literally all about her, even her voice in some of the songs, allegedly. Veronica said, I wonder where he is if he's not cooperating with law enforcement. Is he even in touch with his lawyer? Maybe he took off somewhere. I don't know, Veronica. I don't know. I think the LAPD is doing a good job. I think they're trying to get to the bottom of this. They're going to have to think outside the box on this, because why would somebody in their right mind go back, to Santa Barbara County? So they may be consulting with, the ME to find out, was she there for a while? Brittany put a 1. Okay, I repeated the question, Data, so I hope you got it. Okay. I don't know. Jason said, I hit the enter too soon on that, but the chorus goes, he might have you, but I have your ghost. Oh, okay. Wow. That is interesting. I think that is significant. T says, y'all, Gus was before David and was a middle school boyfriend who was no longer in the... Yeah, I don't think Gus was a thing. I don't think this was related to another guy. I really don't. I think that, in my opinion, let me just adjust this a little bit. In my opinion, this was never about another guy. In my opinion, this was about him wanting to continue to use her for his art. It was something he'd been fantasizing. He loved gore. He told us. I believe him when he tells me that he loved gore. Justice for Celeste. Thank you for modding today, Tanya. Thank you for modding today, Kibling. It is hard to comprehend. I agree. Adele put a 1. It is. It's like, it's horrifying. And it was like, I kind of just felt like awful. I had to like take a mental health break after I wrote the script for this yesterday, and I started looking up all of the people, and could this be possible? Am I like completely, because I was just trying to figure out. Mystery says, I heard Celeste dated another guy. He wrote a song that he's faithful, but she's not. I don't know. She was just a little kid. So the idea that he'd be faithful and she's not, I don't know. Dolan Dinick says he was a sick individual. He definitely knew what he was doing, and he planned it all. Kathy said, I don't think Ed Gein hurt anyone. No, I don't think so either, but I just wanted to just say that this is not unprecedented. I don't think any of the artists hurt anybody. I don't think any of the artists that I mentioned did anything to anybody. I just want to make that really, really abundantly clear. But I think that this is, but the point I did want to make by bringing up the artists is that this is not unprecedented. And I was trying to we've all been trying to figure out, like, why would you keep her in the front truck of the Tesla? It doesn't make sense, but it does. It does make sense, in my opinion, because David's been telling us this whole time, I'm into gore. I love gore. And he's been talking about this whole time what he wanted to do. He's been fantasizing about it, thinking about it. So thinking about it like a normal, rational person, no, it doesn't make sense. But if you think about it from what he's been telling us and going through his art, in his mind, remember, in my mind, he said, I did away with you. He used the ill word with a K. In my mind, I did away with you. In my mind. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. The picture of Celeste was on Figueroa. There's Figueroa Mountain in Santa Barbara where the purple nightshade flowers from his Roblox game Forsaken. So maybe that location was symbolic to him, but ultimately he decided he wanted to go and get her. And I want to say thank you to NJust for gifting another reporter membership. That is so kind of you. If you had a reporter membership from NJust, please make sure you say thank you so much. And let me just show you what a membership does. If you are a member, and this is NJaz. She is our executive producer. Thank you, NJaz. And also just want to say thank you to our producers. We're not done. Sasha Angel, George Brown, Michael L. Cole, Christy Ballantyne, and Randall Rand. But I don't want to leave this to the end where I'm just, I want to put this in the middle here. And then I also want to say thank you to our channel members. So I don't think David thinks the way that, people think that he thinks. I just don't think he thinks like you or I think that this whole time he's been fantasizing about this. He's been talking about this. He's been talking about, and he's been using her for his artwork this whole entire time. So I think the idea that he would stop using her for his artwork is just because she's no longer with us. I think that's where I kind of got off the track of who David is and what David is. In my opinion, allegedly, he's innocent until proven guilty. But I think that it's very, very interesting that, this whole time we've been trying to figure out, well, how did, why would he have gone to Santa Barbara? Was he like looking for a place to put her? We were spitballing the other day when I was going live, and I was looking at, some of the areas that she could be placed during the live stream. And what I just really started thinking more about it is like, I'm thinking about this like myself. I'm not putting myself in his shoes and what he's been talking about. And when we look at everything that he's been talking about, he's been talking about this the whole time. And this is the Hello Kitty girl. When your card declines at therapy and they bring you in that one, so was he in therapy? And they bring in that one Hello Kitty girl you met in 2021, and there he is in another Hello Kitty shirt. And what was Celeste reported missing in? Hello Kitty shoes. So I think this is all connected. I think this is all connected. And I think that the symbolism for David was always going to be Celeste. And until he moved on to somebody else. And maybe he would have continued on with this. I don't know. But I do think it's really sad what happened to her. And I think that she does deserve justice. And I just want to continue to advocate for Celeste Rivas Hernandez. I think she deserves that. And this is where he, gave that interview and he said, in the back of my mind. Well, I don't think it was in the back of his mind. Maybe initially it was in the back of his mind, but ultimately he decided this is what he was going to do. And I think that she was so much of a part of his art. He's literally trying to look like her. She's wearing the same wig that he's wearing here when he's pictured with Neo, right? So he was really identified with her. And in my opinion, the reason that car was found, where it was found, the way it was found, does make sense. It makes sense in light of the fact that, he did want to possess her. Let me see if I can make these just a little bit bigger. They'll go like that. Okay. All right. Let's take some more comments. I want to see where you guys are at. And Antonia says he's been confessing for a long time. Yeah, I think he has. I think he's been talking about this for a long time, and I think he's been thinking about this for a long time, and I think he ultimately did it. Cindy said, "Not normal to frame." Yeah, so sad for her family. I am too. And the fact that he continued touring, he knew that the girl in the trunk had a Shhh tattoo, so he would have known that was Celeste, because I believe, this was a pact between the two of them. Shhh, right? Michael wants to know who was dumb enough to help him. I don't know. Somebody, apparently law enforcement thinks somebody did. The King's daughter says some SKs believe their victims will, and that's where the red string theory is. Okay, so let's talk about red string theory. Let me pull that up. After this, I'm going to do an update on the Summer Wells case. I haven't done an update on this case in a long time, over a year. But we do have updates, so we are going to talk about that. So red string theory and David. So let's talk about what this meant to him. So the red string theory was a theme in David's 2025 album Withered. And it was an interlude that he tracked that he referenced called Individual String Theory. So the album's conception, a concept, and again, I think that David thought about her, that she was part of his art. In posts that an invisible red string connects people, and that the album's context and its symbolism about how life experiences, both positive and negative, are intertwined and lead a person to personal growth and self-discovery. So the overall theme for Withered was, of course, the rose is dying, right? I think that's huge. The road is dying, but let's look at the lyrics of Invisible String Theory too. So this is the lyrics on this. Let me see if I can share this with you. Let me take this down for a second. Put this up. Okay. I didn't grab it. Let me try one more time. All right. Oh, I added it and it says add to the stage. There it goes. Oh, okay. Just took a couple tries. I'm still getting used to this computer, you guys. All right. So this is the lyric. So I have a question. What's the question? Why don't you hold my hand anymore? Here we go again, bro. No, I'm serious. Bro, I'm serious. All right. Continue. I haven't held your hand and dude, shut up. Sorry. You're not funny. I swear you're not funny. My fault. I'm done. All right, let me think. Bro, better set a timer. Oh, it could have been yesterday. It could have been yesterday. Wow, I'm glad. I'm glad you remember that. Glad for that. Period. Thank you. Ew, I hate it when you say period, brah. That's Think about her getting older. So I got a question for you. Okay, why do you think we met? Yeah, why do you think we met? Well, I think personally, have you ever heard of invisible string theory? Oh, yes, exactly. So basically we met because we were supposed to meet. So if he thought he was fated with her, that he was supposed to meet, and we're connected because we're supposed to be connected. It's kind of like that. I loved you before I existed, and I'll love you even when I die. Word. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, to me, it's like, it's weird. It's strange. It's unpredictable. Yeah. So please don't leave me. This is why he held on to her. You got me. You got me. All right. All right. I love you. I love you. This is why he held on to her. In my opinion, this is my theory on this case. So please don't use the SK word in the top chat. Bougie said, by the way, people forget Charles Manson started off as an up-and-coming musician and who was going to collab with famous musicians. He even wrote albums in prison. Oh, wow, you're right. I did not think of him. Moods says, just an update. Celeste's name has been removed from the coroner's page. I can no longer search her name. So maybe they have a COD, but they're not ready for us to know it yet, Moods. Let me search out and see if there's any breaking news in this. I wonder if this is moving forward. If they have a COD. Let's look and see if we have any breaking news. I don't see anything. No. Everything's from... Okay, everything's the same stuff. Okay, so let's continue on. I think, this is my opinion, I think that it's that they maybe now have a COD at this point. They may have more answers. So it's not going to be undetermined anymore. They may be about to update it. Thank you for modding today, Angeles. Thank you for the purple hearts. Let's do purple hearts for Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Say her name. Justice for Celeste. Justice for Celeste. Celeste Rivas Hernandez with purple hearts. Summer said, such a sad case. It is sad. It is sad. And he's really twisted, in my opinion. Brady said, it does. It's called it act accordingly. If we speculate on David as a whole, then yeah, it does make perfect sense. Maddie says, my opinion is that she was unalived, kept in a freezer, and that night he drove and did what he did and then placed her in the front. Could be. Please don't use I have to delete this one, Maddie. I'm sorry. It's nothing personal, but you can't use the dis word in the chat. I'm so sorry. Please don't use that word in the top chat, guys. Don't use it in the chat at all. It'll get filtered out. Please give this a thumbs up. Subscribe. It lets the YouTube algorithm. I'm doing a good job. Cindy said someone's going to crack. Give IT time. Yeah. Well, here's the good thing that we know about this trip, right? This trip out to the desert. We know that some people think it's that they're tracking his cell phone. That could be, but I think it's more likely that law enforcement is actually able to track and to see the Tesla data that it may have taken them time to get into that Tesla. If he deleted data, it doesn't mean they couldn't retrieve it, but it does mean they would have probably had to have served a warrant to Tesla to get the data from Tesla, or get access to the data from Tesla and then go through it. So that could also be another reason why we have a delay. I know people were worried about the LAPD, but I do believe, in my opinion, that they have been working this case really, really hard this whole time. Adele says, if they have a COD, can they arrest someone? That's going to be up to them. I think somebody is cooperating. I think there is. I think that there's somebody in his entourage that is probably cooperating. Thank you for your purple hearts, Adele and Michelle. Bougie Cat says, so even Charles Manson would think David was crazy, not just Roman Polanski, who got remarried, by the way, has a small child. Who would marry that guy? I don't know. He's real creepy. Brittany put purple hearts, and Enjas, who's our head mod, put word remembered, but the AD in front instead of the R. Right. Yeah, we just need to work around this. All right, guys. Well, I think, yeah, I do think he's going to be held accountable. I do. I do think we're going to hear something in the next few days. I think they put this out. So I was like also asking myself, like, why are the authorities putting this out now? Like, why are we getting this information? Right? Why are we getting this information? And I think that the reason that we're getting this information about the potential accomplice via TMZ, who of course they knew we're going to release it to the public, and ABC and NBC, who all reported it out. I think they were shaking the tree. I think there is somebody that, and maybe multiple people, that have come forward and said what they knew and what they're cooperating. And for the next live stream that we do, if we don't have breaking news, what I'm doing next, I've already started this, but I'll have it for the next live stream, which I'll do in another day or two. So be on the lookout for that. But we're going to go through all of the evidence, all of the evidence related to David. And then we're going to talk about who I think may be cooperating. But this is my theory of why. This is my theory of the Santa Barbara trip. And let me know, if you're watching this on replay, what you think about this. And if you haven't subscribed, please help me out with the YouTube algorithm. Let me know you want me to continue covering this case. Please subscribe. Thank you so much for coming by to spend a little bit of time with me, and I will see you on the next one. Right now, I'm headed over right now to do an update on the Summer Wells case out of Rogersville, Tennessee.